introduce Mr. Eric McElvenny. Eric is a Marine Corps veteran and endurance athlete living in San Diego, California. He attended the United States Naval Academy while preparing for his service as a Marine Corps infantry officer. Eric deployed 3 times with 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, and on his final tour, a memorable experience in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, was wounded in action while on combat patrol. Eric suffered the amputation of his right leg below the knee, a life-changing opportunity that began his next journey. This journey taught Eric to embrace his circumstances and led him to the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. When not racing and training, Eric can be found with his wife and 2 daughters in San Diego, California. So with that in mind, please help me welcome Eric McElvenny.
Thank you for the introduction. Guys, it's an honor to be here. Very humbling to have the opportunity to come from San Diego. Doesn't have nice weather there, I swear. But it's an honor to come out here and share a little bit of my life with you. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to take us to Hawaii. I can't really take us there, so I'm just going to tell you about a time that I was there. So just think about it. Think of the sun, the heat, the ocean, the humidity. It's kind of uncomfortably humid there. Think about people running around with grass skirts and coconut bras, men and women. Weird stuff happening in Hawaii, I don't know. But I was 134 miles into a race. So don't worry, I'm not crazy. It wasn't all running. I'm not that crazy or that tough. It was an Ironman. And I'm 134 miles into this Ironman. Ironman, it's 140.6 miles. And it's spread out between swimming, biking, and running. So at this point, I had already finished the swim, which was good. As far as I'm concerned, I looked like Michael Phelps in the water, ripping through the Pacific Ocean. But I saw a video, more realistically, it was like a giraffe, probably like in a bathtub. I also finished the bike. The bike was hard. It was windy. It was hot. It was just a long course. Again, in my mind, I'm a pro biker in the French Alps, and stage 10 of the Tour de France. But that wasn't it either. I was just lucky and happy to be done with that thing. It was a hard bike course, and at this point, I'm 19 miles into the run. So I only have 7 miles left, 7.2 actually. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. The problem is, I can't see that light. In fact, I don't even think I'm in the right tunnel. I was in a bad place. I was in a bad place here and here. Every single part of my body hurt. I was in pain. I would compare it to childbirth, but I've never actually done that, so I can't. And I don't want to take that miracle away from you women. You guys can have that one. But I was hurting. My legs were on fire. They were sore. They were tired. My feet, they felt like cinder blocks. And I actually only have 1 foot, so my left foot felt like a cinder block. My right foot felt like nothing because it's not there. But I was hurting. I had cramps coming up in places that I didn't expect. You know, obviously I had that side cramp that you always get when you're running, and my legs were cramping, and my biceps were cramping. I think my teeth were starting to cramp. I was like, this is getting kind of weird. And my limb. So the end of my limb, it's about right here on my right leg. I call it a nub. Some people call it a limb. Someone already took Stumpy, so I just go with the nub. But my nub was really, really sore. So picture just being at an amusement park an entire day. And at the end of that day, plus you're wearing a pair of shoes that are a little bit too short or a little bit too small. At the end of that day, your feet just hurt. That's kind of what my limb was feeling like. That's what my nub was feeling like. But probably times about 10 or 20. So I was in pain, and not only am I in pain, but I am out of energy. You know, during an Ironman, you got to fuel your body. You got to give yourself enough calories so you can continue to go throughout an entire day. I'm over 10 hours of racing at this point, and I'm starting to hit a wall. So the first 19 miles of that run, in my head, I was like Usain Bolt running the 100-meter dash. But finally, that jog had slowed to a walk. And it wasn't just a walk, like I couldn't even lift my head. It was a slow walk, like maybe one of the Golden Girls or something like that. It was pretty bad. I was in a bad place. So I did what any good Ironman triathlete would do at that point in time. I sat down, I took my leg off, and I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're probably wondering where I got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Not important, not important. But I did that. I sat down there for a little bit. I was down for, it was under 5 minutes when I realized, if I don't get up, I am never going to get up, and I'm not going to finish this race. Like, I need to start making some moves. So I grab my run leg, I try to put it back on, and it doesn't fit. And I'm thinking, I look down at it like, did I accidentally grab someone else's leg? It's like, I look at it like, no, that's my leg. And I look at my nub, and it was swollen. It just swelled up really quickly, and I couldn't get my leg on. I honestly I felt defeated. I asked myself 2 questions, and the first one was, how did I get myself into this? This is stupid. And the second one was, who would ever do more than one of these things? I know people that have done multiple Ironmans. Like, why would you put yourself through that? So let's take a step back from Hawaii now, because I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable. But if you realize, there was a lot of bad things going on, a lot of negative things, and it was like one after the other. And it just, my mind, that's what I was focusing on. But in reality, guys, like, there was a lot of positive things going on in my life. I was alive. I was in Hawaii. Hawaii is pretty cool. My family was there on vacation. I wasn't, but they were. They were enjoying it. And I was competing in a sport. I've always had a passion for sports, and I'm out there, and I'm doing it, and I'm loving it. Those things are all so good and very, very positive to me. But all that was masked by the pain and the fatigue and the struggles that I was facing. Over the past couple of years, I've had some great opportunities to learn some very cool lessons from very important people in my life. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. I want to share with you some of the stories and some of the tools that I've learned to help me navigate through some of the challenges, because that's where we all are unified. We all face challenge and struggles and adversity and obstacles. So I'm going to try something real quick, but you got to work with me or I'm going to look like an idiot. But if I mention a struggle that you have struggled with or that you're currently struggling with, just throw up your hand real quick and leave it up there. So you got a physical injury like me, amputation. Yeah. Maybe a relationship struggles or marital struggles. Financial struggles. Stress. Time management. Loss. Addiction. Guys, at some point, and keep going, everyone's hands are going to be in that air because we all, thanks for doing that, hands down. But we all face struggles. And I think what defines our character isn't what circumstances we're in or what situations we're facing, but it's how we step up to the plate and how we handle those challenges. So guys, I want to give you a better idea who I am as we move into it. I'm the little dude in the front row with a red sweater, a really cool looking bowl cut. That's my family. I got 2 older sisters. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, but I grew up loving sports, absolutely loving sports, all of them. Played baseball, football, and just a little bit of everything. But because I love sports so much, I had to enjoy school because my mom wouldn't let me play on the sports teams if I didn't bring home good grades. So that's fair enough. It turned into a habit, and it was actually a school assignment that ended up having a really large impact on my life. We had, in the 8th grade, we had to do a career research report. We had to figure out what it was that we wanted to be when we grow up and write about it. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I grew up, so I asked my dad, and he said, hey, you should check out the military. And at that time, in the mid-90s, the United States Marine Corps had the coolest commercials, and they had the coolest uniforms. So that was my criteria for picking a career or a job. But I did that research report on the Marine Corps, and I'm really glad I did, because what I learned is what had that impact. I was very impressed with what the Marines represent, with just their rich history, the stories of valor, stories of the heroes. Got Gunnery Sergeant Johnny Basilone, Guadalcanal. He led a machine gun section against thousands of Japanese fighters, and he fought off attack after attack, and he's awarded the Medal of Honor. And instead of calling it quits after that, he went and fought in Iwo Jima, and he was killed in action after getting a Navy Cross. And that is just something special, that sacrifice. And I realized that there's always going to be someone sacrificing the way they live their life to provide freedom for our nation. There's someone doing it right now. There's guys out and about in Afghanistan. I just saw some news today that they're going to keep about 50, I think it was 5,000 troops in there right now, out on the oceans. They're everywhere. Just our military is going to be out and about. And I realized that I wanted to be a part of that. I needed to be a part of that. So I decided that I was going to be a Marine when I grew up. Now, I The path that I took to get into the Marine Corps was through the United States Naval Academy. I went to the Naval Academy. I didn't get in there right away. I had to go to a prep school. Some people call it a fifth year of high school. I call it a fifth year of college because it makes me sound smarter. But the Naval Academy was great. It was challenging. It was hard. I played rugby, which is cool if you like to drink beer and hit people. Like, that's your sport. I studied mechanical engineering, but by far the most important thing that happened to me at the Naval Academy is I met my wife. She was also a midshipman, and she also studied mechanical engineering. And I used to go to her for help all the time. And, not really because I cared that much about my grades, but I thought she was really cute. And it paid off. We ended up getting married and having kids. But I graduated in 2006, and I became a Marine. I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, and that was a dream. So I was really excited about that. I did a couple deployments. Ended up doing 3 deployments. My wife did 2. So it was a little bit challenging, some back-to-back deployments. But definitely wouldn't trade my time in the military. I'm going to talk about my 3rd deployment. It was a deployment to Helmand Province, Afghanistan. It was unique. It was kind of cool. I was in charge of a small team of 4 guys, and we were embedded into an Afghan Army infantry company of about 120 soldiers. And our job, we were advisors and mentors to this company. We were to train, advise, mentor, and as our forces were beginning to pull out of Afghanistan, it was important that their security forces were taking over the responsibility of the security of their nation. So this mission was pretty unique, and I learned a lot. I was there for 3.5 months, and it was a very bright 3.5 months in my life. I learned a lot and experienced a lot. Some of the stuff that I'll take away from Afghanistan. The people there, the villages that I worked with, they wanted us there. When we were there, they felt safe. Because we were there, the kids had an opportunity to go to school. And the kids, they would not have had this opportunity. The unit before us built a school, and we provided security so they could go to school. The little boys, their alternative would have been joining the Taliban or just growing old and just being farmers. Never would have had a chance at a university. And the little girls, not even a chance to ever think about education. So that was special to me, giving someone the possibility or giving someone hope of doing something like that in the future. Unfortunately, my deployment went a little bit quicker than I had anticipated. Has anyone here ever had a bad day? Yeah, I've had plenty of bad days, but I've had one bad day that was bad enough that now I celebrate it. It's December 9th, 2011. And this day, it started like any other day in Afghanistan. Woke up probably about 4:30, and that was kind of routine. We woke up, got ready to go on a patrol, and this day, the patrol was going to be a foot patrol, so we were going to be walking through a village, really kind of like police officers, just talking to the people, getting to know them. It wasn't really a kinetic mission where we weren't out searching the enemy. So we were out and about on this patrol for about 5 hours. It's funny, every time I tell this story, it gets a little bit longer. So we were finishing this 6-hour patrol, and we're heading back to the patrol base, and something happened. I stepped on an improvised explosive device, and I triggered an explosion underneath my right foot. I remember the experience being very violent. I picked my body up, and it threw me to the ground. I didn't know exactly what had happened. I had a concussion. I was a little bit dazed, but I was conscious. My ears were ringing, just a very, very intense, high ringing. In fact, I didn't really hear the explosion. Like I heard a pop, and then my ears were ringing, and I felt wetness on my left leg, pretty high. I had gloves on, but I felt it with my leg. I still didn't know what happened, but I was beginning to figure it out. I realized I was in Afghanistan. Realized that I'm laying on my back, looking into a sky that was dust-filled. My ears are ringing. I knew I stepped on an IED. And we were in country at that point for 3.5 months. So I had seen plenty of other IEDs and explosions like that, and I knew what they do to vehicles. I knew what they do to people. So immediately I thought that there was a good chance that I was dying. And I remember the 2 thoughts that went through my head when I thought that I was dying. The first one, I thought about heaven. I'm a Christian, and quickly I just did not feel in control. I was not in control of the situation, and I thought, I guess this is my chance to go to heaven. And then immediately after that, I thought about my wife and my daughter. And it kind of sounds like Hollywood, but that's what quickly came up. And I was like, man, I still have things that I really want to do in this world. I want to grow old with my wife and raise my daughter. And I was a little bit scared. Shortly after that, the pain set in, because it was wild. For the first 10 or 15 seconds, I didn't feel any pain. But then the pain started to hurt, and my corpsman came running up to me. My corpsman, he's our medic. He's kind of our doctor in the field. He had just turned 21 years old, and I know that because he turned 21 when we were in Afghanistan. I wanted to buy him a beer, but we couldn't. But he came running up to me, and I remember the first words that he said. He looked at me. He said, "Sir, where's your tourniquet?" And I was like, oh, man. In the past 15 seconds that I'm thinking about living and dying, I should have been saving my life and putting on a tourniquet. And we carried 4 tourniquets, one here, one in our pouch here. Actually, I only had 3 because I had a radio up here. So I immediately started to reach for a tourniquet. And then he jumped on me. He threw his knee into my femoral artery to stop the bleeding, and he applied his own tourniquet. And that just intensified the pain. Now, this pain, I hope I never have to feel this pain again. It was just a searing, burning feeling. And I remember just pleading with my corpsman. And it's kind of funny, like I never screamed. And it's not because I'm that tough. I think I forgot how to scream. But some people complimented me on that after the fact. Like, wow, you didn't even yell. That's good discipline. It's like, yeah, I forgot how. But I remember pleading with my corpsman, my doc. Like, Doc, you got to stop this pain. You got to stop the pain. And he like sits up and he's like, okay. And he pulls out a little shot of morphine and he jams it in my leg. I was like, oh well, that was easy. And after a couple minutes, it's like, Doc, that didn't work. You need to do that again. So he did. He gave me another one, and I tried it one more time. He's like, sir, I've given you enough morphine to put down a small horse. Like I can't give you any more. I was like, okay. But I was conscious throughout, and I was really glad that I was, because what I saw was extremely impressive. Immediately the Marines and the Afghan soldiers around me, they went into action, because we've practiced this. When someone gets hurt, we've practiced this over and over again. What do you do? And one team immediately pushed out to provide security around a perimeter. Another team got up to go find a suitable place for a helicopter to land. And the other team was working on me and getting the stretcher out and getting ready. And as they're working on me, I'm laying on my back just praying that this helicopter gets there before the Taliban does. All of a sudden I hear the worst sound that I think I could have heard at that time. It was another explosion. It was behind me about 20 meters. I didn't even try to turn around and look. I looked into the eyes of my corpsman, and his head went down. After about 7 seconds, I heard a Marine cry out and yell out in pain. And it's hard to hear someone yell out in pain, especially because I knew the pain that he was in, but it meant that he was alive. So now that bad day just got a little bit worse, because now another Marine is hurt. As the helicopter was coming in, I finally heard it circling over top, and it was like, yes, great, please, get here quick. The Taliban did show up. They showed up and they started engaging us, but the Marines that pushed out for security, they fought them off, and the pilot decided to come in. He landed really close to where we were, and they threw us on the helicopter. So I was on that helicopter 17 minutes after I was injured, which is amazing, and it's just, it really is a testament of the Marines that I was with and their training, and how everyone responded just perfectly and made things work. So myself and Lance Corporal Miller, the other guy that stepped on the IED, we're on the helicopter and we take off and we're heading to the hospital. And we get there really quickly. It was like a 4-minute flight, which again saved lives. And in the military, we have a golden hour. When someone has a traumatic injury, you got to get them to a hospital, into surgery within that hour. And I was into surgery within 40 minutes. And I remember when I landed, the doctors first, they asked if I wanted more pain medication. And I was like, yeah, keep it coming, keep the pain. And then they took me back, they got me ready, and I was going into surgery. Said, hey, look into this light and count down from 10. And I was like 10. 9, and then you're out. That's how going into surgery works for me, at least. They must have done pretty well with the drugs. When I woke up, I was in a different hospital. I'm not even really sure how I got there. They could have thrown me on a camel and sent me across the desert for all I know. I imagine they flew me, but I'm in a different hospital, and I look down, and I'm missing my right leg below the knee. My left leg is all bandaged up. My left arm's bandaged up. I got IVs in me. I couldn't sit up on my own. I was in a lot of pain. I was in pretty bad shape, but I was alive, and that was special. Early on, I struggled with, I think it was a loss of identity. 1 second before I stepped on that IED, I was a strong, healthy, confident, aggressive Marine leader. And 1 second after that explosion, I was laying on my back. I was in all kinds of pain. I wasn't confident. I wasn't even confident that I was going to live. And I just needed assistance from other people. I felt like a different person. And, my challenge, that was my challenge. Like now I had one leg and I wanted to get back to living an active lifestyle. And luckily I had a lot of very important people in my life. And the first one, it's kind of funny, sometimes you think you're going to learn life's lessons from, maybe your CEO or maybe your professor or your coach or something. I learned a very important lesson from my daughter. She was 5 years old at the time, so she was in kindergarten, and she's just amazing. But when I was injured, my wife had a tough job. My wife was serving in the Navy, and she was at home doing the single-parent thing while I was off on vacation in Afghanistan. And out of nowhere, she gets a call from headquarters Marine Corps, and she didn't know what I was doing. I didn't tell her exactly what we were doing in Afghanistan. But she gets a call from headquarters Marine Corps, and they tell her, your husband lost his leg, and he's in critical condition. And that's tough to get that call. And not only does she have to deal with that, but all of our family is on the East Coast, so she's out there by herself dealing with that. And now she has to tell her 5-year-old daughter. And my 5-year-old daughter, she always used to look at me like I was Superman. And all of a sudden, I'm hurt. So she sits her down. She says, Lupe, Daddy got hurt at work. Daddy lost his leg, and Daddy's going to be coming home. Daddy's going to be coming home, and we need to be there to support him. And my daughter then looked at my wife and asked her a question and said, well, when is he going to be home? And my wife, the Marine Corps, the military in general, I think it's important for you guys to know, they did a really good job of taking care of me. And the Marine Corps did a great job of communicating with my parents and my wife of where I was. So my wife knew that I was going to be home in 4 days. So she told her, Dad's going to be home in about 4 days. And my daughter, a little 5-year-old, she processes this information, and then she smiles. And she tells my wife that Daddy's going to be home for Christmas. And I think that's extremely special, because what was a very negative event for me and my wife and my family and my friends, a 5-year-old daughter just so purely and so instinctively pulls something positive from it. Now, I don't know what's better, like having a leg or being home for Christmas, but that whole having a leg thing, man, that's a fact. That thing was gone. It's water under the bridge there. But that being home for Christmas, instead of my daughter focusing her energy on something that she couldn't control, she decided to focus her energy on that. And I was in Germany when my wife told me that, and it put a smile on my face. It made me happy. I called in the nurses and told them, hey, I get to go home and spend Christmas with my daughter. I wouldn't have gotten to do that. So that was very special. And I love it, because that's the type of person that I want to be. Anna that I want to be around. That person who can take any situation and find something positive in it and focus on that. Because that's special. And if my daughter can do it, then I figured maybe I could do something like that as well. Where I did my recovery ended up really, really having a strong impact on, I think my success, or I guess speed of recovery. But I recovered at the Naval Medical Center in San Diego, so I was around a lot of other sailors and Marines who were injured. The first 2 or 3 weeks, I was in a hospital room by myself, but eventually a physical therapist came up, and I got to go down to the physical therapy room for the first time, and I wheeled in a wheelchair, and I'll never forget that day, because I wheeled into this physical therapy room, and I looked around, and the guys, the wounds that I saw, and the scars that I saw made my single right below knee amputation feel like a paper cut. And people had it, men and women had it so much worse. And not only that, but they were doing it. Like, they were in this physical therapy room, they were sweating, they were high-fiving, they were joking, they were working out. One guy was tied to the ceiling, putting on his prosthetic legs for the first time, trying to walk, and he's falling and getting back up, and guys are just working out on the rowing machine. It was impressive, and I realized that there wasn't one victim in that room. It was just a room full of warriors, it was inspiring for me. For one, prior to seeing that, there was times that I felt sorry for myself. But when I did see that, it was like perspective. I realized that, wow, things could be a lot worse. And then these guys are doing it. These guys inspired me. If they could do it, I can't wait to join them. And I was just eager at that point to get going and to start healing. And then you have people who have expectations of you. And my family, they had some expectations. My daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, she expected to have a dad. I didn't know what the next step was. But she expected to have a dad that volunteered at her school, that coached her teams, that went to the park and played. And because she expected that, I wanted to deliver. So though her expectations became my expectations. And my wife, it's kind of a funny and a quick story. And when I told her a few months ago about this story, like she had forgot, she didn't realize it. But there was one night where I was just trying to help out. I didn't have a prosthetic leg yet. I was on crutches. I was looped up on oxycodone as well. And I just asked her, like, hey, is there anything I could do to help you out? Because she was still working in the Navy, taking care of my daughter, taking care of me. And I just wanted to help. And she said, well, you could take out the trash if you can. It would really help me out. And I was like, okay, it sounds easy enough, but when she said that, man, I'm thinking stage 3 of American Ninja Warrior. Like this was going to be challenging because you're on crutches, you don't have a limb, you're already a little woozy from the drugs, and you got to take this trash bag out. And I was living on the 2nd floor of a apartment-sized condo, so I had 20 stairs to get down, and there's a turn in there. So let's just think of me going downstairs with a garbage bag, and of course, every time you have a garbage bag and it touches the ground, there's a hole in it, and all the disgusting liquid comes out and gets all over the place. And I get down to the bottom of the steps, and then I'm on this sidewalk, which I know was meant for defense against people on crutches because it was really skinny, and there's like branches that are hitting the crutches, and you get past that, and then there's like one patch of grass, but because there's only this one patch of grass in the whole complex, every dog uses it, if you know what I mean. So it's basically a minefield, and I'm not good at minefields, so I got to circumnavigate through that, and then I got to traverse across 20 feet of open parking lot to get to the trash can. And you never know, it's neighborhood kids are ripping around on scooters, so you never know what's going to happen. But I did it. I got to the trash can, I put that trash in there, I head back up, I crutch up, I'm sweating. I got disgusting trash like all over my foot. There's probably dog poop too, I don't know. And I walk in and my wife looks at me and she's like, everything all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. She just had that small expectation. She wanted me to take out the trash. And prior to me going to that deployment, that was my job. I don't know if I got screwed or if it's always the guy's job to take out the trash, but that was my job. And even though it was hard and it was a 40-minute process, I was proud to have that job again. I was glad that she expected that from me. She never once treated me as a victim, and her strength put strength in me. Eventually, we'll get there. I set some goals, and I'm not going to tell you guys how to set goals, but I'll tell you the 2 goals that I set. And the first one was I wanted to be walking unassisted, like no crutches or canes or anything, when my Marines got back from Afghanistan. And I had three and a half months to do that from when I was injured. And it was possible. I talked to the doctors, but that was something for me. It motivated me to get out of bed in the morning. I was supposed to go to physical therapy 4 times a week. I went 6 times a week, and then I would ask them if I could do double sessions. I just wanted to get back, and that goal helped me do it. This was exactly 2 months after my injury. First time I stood up on a prosthetic leg. It was cool. It was definitely a step in the right direction. And about 2 weeks before my Marines got back from Afghanistan, I went from this in the bars to doing it with a cane, and then the 2 weeks prior to my Marines getting back, I dropped the cane. So when they got off the plane, I was standing there with a prosthetic leg, and I'm standing there ready. And I don't know if it meant a lot to them, but it really did. It meant a lot to me. It was something very special. And then the other goal that I set, it started with an email from my boss in Afghanistan. It happened while I was still in the hospital bed. And he sent me an email asking me when I was going to run my first marathon. And, I needed to hear that. At first, I was like, you're a jerk. I don't have a leg. but I needed to hear that. He knew what I needed to inspire me and to motivate me. He's just a great leader, a great friend now. And because he challenged me at running a marathon, that's when I decided to set a goal at running an Ironman. And as far as goals go, I just think it's so important to set your goals high, because when I look back on my life, anything that I consider an accomplishment was something that I had to work hard for. So when you're setting goals, if you want it to end in accomplishment, you're gonna set your goals high. I knew that I could do a 5K. I could have probably threw crutches on and did a 5K, but at Ironman, I didn't know if I was ever gonna be able to do that. So that was a goal. And I kind of use that way of thinking when I come to a decision point in my life, because there's always a shortcut. There's always that easy way of doing something, and then the hard path. And I've just realized that they don't meet in the same place. And that hard path, that's what's going to turn into an accomplishment. So I set that goal of running an Ironman, and I started making my way there. It was tough. I met up with an organization called the Challenge Athletes Foundation. They support people with disabilities, and this is just a video. So that's the Challenge Athletes Foundation, and there's a program within them, Operation Rebound, that supports veterans and first responders. But I ran into them really quickly, and they began to support me. And sent me to a camp and then signed me up for my first triathlon. And it was just a sprint triathlon. It's just a fraction of what an Ironman is. But I think the smile on my face is a forced smile because it was hard. But it was another milestone, another step in the right direction. Within that first year, I was able to run 3 triathlons and a marathon. And one of the triathlons, it was pretty cool. It was actually a half Ironman, and I got to run it with Lance Armstrong. He barely beat me by like 2.5 hours. but then we got to hang out after, and after the race, he walked in with a Budweiser, and someone said, "Hey, is that your recovery drink?" And he said, "No, that's my 3rd recovery drink." It was actually a funny guy, and this was before the scandal actually came out and everything. So, yeah, I don't know what happened now. But as I continued moving forward in the next season, I was like, okay, still working towards that Ironman. I found out that I was selected to become part of a team to go compete in the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. And it was with an organization called Refuel Got Chocolate Milk. They were selling chocolate milk as a recovery drink, which it is. It's a great recovery drink. And they're featuring Hines Ward. He's you may know him as a former Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver, NFL Super Bowl MVP, or you may know him as Dancing with the Stars #1. I don't know what season. But I got to be on his team. And it was really cool because I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I was cheering for him on the football field for so many years. I think he played 14 years as a Steeler. And then I got to meet him and hang out with him and train with him. And we had to do the Ironman individually, but part of the same team. And just getting to know him was pretty cool because he was a really, really good guy and a lot of fun. Eventually, I got to go out to Hawaii. And
next to finish is retired Marine and challenged athlete Eric McElvenny. He crosses the line in 11:54:19.
Look back on the race, I think when it was hard and I was able to kind of dig down deep, it brings a sense of pride to me. At that point, like I felt no pain. I felt like an Ironman.
Become One team is reunited at the finish line. The long journey is now complete.
So it was really special, and I thought back to when I was sitting on that ground with 7.2 miles left, and I couldn't get my leg on, and the 2 questions that I asked myself, how did I ever get myself into this? And it's that feeling of accomplishment right there. Like at that point, all that pain that I was feeling, it didn't matter anymore because now my focus was on accomplishment and something good. And I just can't even put the words, the emotions into words of what it felt like crossing that finish line. That's thinking back 22 months prior to when I was in that hospital bed and setting a goal like that. That's how I got into it. And I was really glad that I did. And that second question was, who would ever do more than one of these things? Well, guys, man, that accomplishment felt so good. And I checked a goal off. I wanted to do it again. So I continued racing Ironmans, and you hit one goal, so you set another, and now my next goal has become the fastest amputee Ironman. And at this point, I still have an hour and 20 minutes to make up. But I've done 4. I'm doing my 5th one in about a month, and I'm hoping to go for the record there. But you set your goals high, and then you're going to be surprised. It's that journey that's really special. I've had a lot of people thank me for my sacrifice and for serving this nation, and that makes me feel really good. It makes me feel proud to have served our nation as a Marine. I like that, but it also makes me think of all the people that have sacrificed so much, for me and my story. And it's my mother quit her job when I was hurt. She basically moved herself out to California for 2 months to help us, my wife and I. And that was awesome. That's really, that's what a mother does. And my dad had to take on extra work overtime because of that lost income. That's special. The doctors that put me back together, spent 8+ years at medical school. That wasn't easy, going through all that school and doing all that. But I realized, man, that's something special. It's going through all that just so you can help someone out. Like that really had an impact on my life. My corpsman that was there on the scene, that was something special. My prosthetist that works on the legs, I have a different bike leg and a different run leg, and it really takes precision and a lot of dedication and work. And he really cares. He cares. He works with a lot of veterans, and he gets us up and going. And it's just special to see how much time and effort that he puts into it. And I think back to my teachers and my coaches and everyone. Just had such a big impact on my life. It's a big team thing, and something that I think is very special. Now, guys, I kind of want to end with this. One time I opened it up for Q&A, which I'll do again today, but a high school student asked me if I knew what I know now and I could go back to the day that I was injured, would I change anything? And sometimes when you open it up for Q&A, you open yourself up to look like an idiot because you got to give an answer. But sometimes that good answer doesn't come to you until a little bit later. So that first answer that I gave him was like, yeah, I probably would step in a different place. That makes sense. But then I realized that wasn't really what he was asking. And luckily, I was asked that question again at another point. And my answer is no, I wouldn't change anything. If I knowing what I know now, I'm almost at 4 years now. And over the past 4 years, I've learned a lot. I've really grown, I've matured, and my priorities have shifted a little bit. I think back to the day that I was injured when I thought that there was a chance that I was dying. I thought about heaven, I thought about my family. So I realized those are my two biggest priorities, my faith and my family. And that's what I use to help me make my decisions now and guide me in my life. And I realized that this is who I am now. I have one leg. My new favorite restaurant is IHOP, which is kind of cool. I run triathlon. I'm dad. I'm coach. I'm a husband. I'm a student. I'm that. This is who I am. This is my situation. These are my circumstances, and I love them, and I wouldn't change them. I wouldn't want to go through that pain again, but I wouldn't change things. I like how things turned out. So I think that's my challenge to you guys is just to own your circumstances, own your situation, whatever good events or decisions or bad events or decisions you made in the past to get you to where you are. Like right now, your situation is your situation, and everyone's is different. So we're all alike, that we all have challenges, but we're all different, that we all have our own lives. And man, I say just own it. Own yours and make a life that you can be proud of living and something that you can enjoy to live. So thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. And if we had any time for questions, happy to answer a couple questions. Yes, sir?
You talked about at the very beginning that you looked at this as an opportunity. Is that from your prior training, or did that come through your relationships that you built while you were recovering?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's something not from my prior training. I think it's something after it happened and almost like looking back, and not fully, because I'm still continuing to grow, but at some point I realized it was an opportunity. And honestly, the whole Ironman thing, at first, to me, that was a very selfish goal. Like, if I'm going to go run an Ironman, then I have to spend a lot of time training. It's like 20 to 25 hours a week training. So that's 20 to 25 hours a week away from my family. So it was hard to make that full commitment because I felt like it was a selfish thing, like I'm doing it for myself. But at one point I was out and I was running and someone said, "Hey, that's awesome. Like, you really inspired me. I'm going to go run later." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool." And then someone else said, "Hey, can you come talk to my class? Because what you're doing is inspiring." And that's when I realized that maybe it's not as selfish a goal as I thought. And I kept doing it. And when I was able to kind of give back and to help other wounded, Marine sailors or just people in general, when I was able to go and talk to these schools and talk about what it's like having a disability, then that's when I realized that it's an opportunity. That's when I realized that this is almost kind of a gift. I'm almost blessed to have this opportunity to live it and to share it. Thank you. Yeah, great question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's obvious that your recovery, there's ups and downs. And you left us with you sitting on the side of the road at a very down point.
Yes, sir.
What was your thought process to say, okay, I am going to get up again? And also, how did you get the prosthesis on your swollen?
That's a great question. So my thought process, while I was sitting down, I realized, oh man, this is like, how am I going to do this? Like, it seems like things are against me. I was also worried about my time. I had a goal. Not only did I want to finish an Ironman, but I had an 11:30 time, and that's what I was really letting bother me. I was like, man, I'm not going to hit my time. Like, I'm letting myself down. I'm letting other people down. And then I took a step back. I realized, like, in an Ironman, you have 17 hours to finish. It's like, I can crawl to the finish line. Like, I'm going. At one point, I said, you know what? I'm not worried about that time anymore. Like, it's just amazing that I'm out here and I have this opportunity to go run an Ironman. I'm just going to finish. And when I was able to settle down, stop worrying about that time and that petty thing, then I was able to take my time. And that peanut butter sandwich that I ate, it started to kick in. I was getting energy. I stood up. My limb wasn't fitting. So I just slowly was walking. And I walked about a half a mile until the thing jammed its way back in there. And at first it was very painful, but eventually, like, all the fluid that went to my leg worked its way back out, and I was in there. And by the time that the peanut butter and jelly sandwich had hit, and by the time that my leg was back in there, I was like, okay, it's time to go. And I started jogging. And it's funny, if you track me during the race, I was running like 9-minute pace, 10-minute pace, 9-minute pace, maybe like an 11 here and there. Then I had a 17-minute mile, and at the end of the race, people said, hey, we thought you were done because your time just stopped. I was like, yeah, I thought I was done too. But I told them, I took my leg off and I couldn't get it back on, and that happened. But I ended up finishing, yeah. Was that? You had 2 questions. Did I answer both of them? No. All right. Yeah. Yes, sir?
You mentioned goals a few times, and you said you had that initially, I think when you mentioned the goal of running a marathon, when you got the email when you could barely even walk. Can you talk more specifically about how do you go from where you're at when a goal is so far away? And how do you stay with that?
Yeah, great question. So, initially, when I set that goal of running an Ironman, it had to be broken up into milestones. Because at that point, I had no prosthesis. Like, it was a bunch of little goals put into one bigger one, and like each little milestone was a goal. So having that one goal of being able to stand and walk, like I needed that. Like, being able to stand, like, that was a goal in itself to reach that bigger goal. And then once I got that, it was like, okay, now I need to figure out how to get a running leg. And I was trying to convince the doctors to sign me off to give me a running leg, before they wanted to. But that was the next thing. Like, I need to get a running leg. And then it's like, okay, now I need to hop in the pool and start swimming. And it's funny, like with swimming, I don't swim with a prosthesis, so it took me a while to figure out how to stop going in circles. But eventually it worked out. But it was just breaking that goal up into a bunch of little goals. I mean, it was a ton of goals. I call them milestones in that journey. Yes?
I have a question. You heard a lot about post-traumatic stress. Did you experience any of that? Or have you helped anyone that's going through that?
Yeah, the post-traumatic stress is hard. And people ask me, do you have post-traumatic stress? I say no, but very early on, it was tough. Like, now we do a better job of leaving war. Like, as you come out of a war zone, you have to go through mental health specialists, and you have to go through this cooling down period in classes and this. But for me, I was kind of just whisked off the battlefield, and all of a sudden in a hospital, and then all of a sudden at home. I remember I was in California, and I was in a bus being taken down to the hospital, and like I couldn't believe that there was pavement and cars, because I was used to Helmand Province, which was just dirt and dirt trails, and it almost made me angry for a little bit. But early on, like, I had issues with some dreams here and there. One time I woke up and my wife was Kazim, my interpreter, and I was trying to get my wife to go talk to the snipers to do this or that. Like, I had a few issues like that, but nothing that really bothered me, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I have such a strong family, such a strong wife. If I'm walking down the street and I walk past construction and I hear someone hammering something, immediately that's an AK-47 or an RPK. But that doesn't bother me. It's just like, okay, no, it's not. It's not. I don't have the anxiety that some of my friends do, or some of the other guys do. So It's hard. I definitely have friends with post-traumatic stress, and as far as helping, I think I found that one of the best things to do, at least the one way that I can help out, is to talk to them, because I have some similar experiences. Just talking about it helps. And maybe for me that was part of the therapy, is when I was healing in the hospital, like I always talked about getting blown up and what that was like, and we always shared stories, and that was therapy for me. Yes, sir?
I come back during the Vietnam War. You come back during the Afghanistan War. How do you feel you were treated and your return? And can you make any comments about the value we bring to Afghanistan being over?
Yeah. So first off, the difference being, as far as how I was treated when I came back, I was treated like a rock star. The American people just so supportive. In the hospital, I got hundreds and hundreds of cards from people that I knew and from people that I didn't know, and people sent cookies, and there were visitors, and there was always people asking, like, how can we help out? How can we help out? Almost to the point, like, I don't know how else you can help out. You guys are amazing. And looking back at the Vietnam War, it was opposite, absolute opposite. It's sad, but because of what the Vietnam veterans and because of what gentlemen like yourself went through, I think that's why as a society we realized it kind of messed up, and as we came home it was just a whole different game. So I was very, very blessed for that. And then as far as Afghanistan, what the question was, what good do we bring Afghanistan?
What value do we bring being over there? Do you feel there was a true value?
Oh yeah. I wasn't sure. Initially, of course, you have the Taliban and you have 9/11, because the Taliban was in governance and they were in control in Afghanistan. They were letting things happen in their country that ended up affecting us. So I politically, I don't know. I was just a little Marine doing my thing, but I thought it was the right decision to go in. And when I finally got to Afghanistan in 2011, man, was I sold, because I saw what the people were dealing with. The people in the villages that I was around, they were intimidated and scared and just in fear of life under the Taliban rule. And when we went there, just the little things like it's like, hey, we should put in a school, we should do this. And then me working with the Afghan National Army, like directly with them, I saw some very positive things and some very negative things. Personally, I think maybe we should have emphasized the Afghan security forces a little bit earlier, or it's something, right now, we're making decisions to stay there a little bit longer. But I saw an Afghan army company who could go and keep a village secure. The villages that we were at had Afghan government, had police stations, and had the army surrounding it. And that was what we were trying to make happen everywhere. So it's kind of up in the air. Like, I'm going to continue watching it, but I think we at least gave them hope. We gave them a possibility, and they have. Man, they have what it takes. Like, when we did start leaving, I know that the Afghans were like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. I wish we would have learned more from them a little bit earlier, and maybe that's it. Maybe next time they will, but I'm not 100% sure. All right. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.